All right, welcome everybody. This is Bob Treemore, and I'm joined once again today with Dr. David Miller, who has currently still written a book about Peloton, and he has also taught at George Mason University about innovation and entrepreneurship and exciting stuff like that. Just as background, about I'd say once every maybe couple months, David and I kind of chat offline. We give each other a phone call and kind of touch base and see what we're thinking about various things. And we thought periodically it'd be fun to just kind of do one of these so that other people can kind of see what we're talking about. And I think, David, today you just kind of wanted maybe look briefly at the 2022 Peloton and look a little bit further at maybe 2023 and what we're doing.
Yeah, we got a new year. Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2023. I think it could go down as the greatest year of all time. I'll tell you why. We'll see as the year plays out, but it's 23, the greatest basketball player of all time. I'm a Chicago born, as my leaderboard name says. So I'm taking something with the number 23. And for Peloton, is this the year that to quote, I think it's Robin, the comeback is greater than the setback, right? Maybe we could do a whole show of just quotes from our instructors that we love so much. But it's a perfect time, the new year, coming up on the 1 year anniversary of Barry. Whatever you want to call him, people have different names. I'm just going to call him Barry, the CEO. So maybe let's talk about it from Barry's view. I think Bob, I heard your most recent video. I think you are not a big believer maybe at this point. I don't want to put words in your mouth. As we all know, I've never been a believer in Barry. And we're heading into the second year. So now people are really going to ask questions.
Absolutely they are. And justifiably, people should be asking questions. And yep. I would rephrase. I've actually been an ardent supporter of Barry. John is out. Let's not even talk about John. So Barry's first year, I agree. I like the hard charging, no nonsense, as you referred to. Some people call him Uncle Barry, Barry Plus, obviously Barry McCarthy. I like his numbers approach to Peloton because I think that is the way to go. The only issues I have, well, I probably have a few issues, but one of my major issues is I still think bikes are priced too high. And I know you and I I think we've even talked about this before. You think bikes and or products should have a premium price at Peloton. And I still believe right now bikes, treads, and even rows to some extent have reached a commodity status. And they're everywhere. They're ever present. They're ubiquitous. And I don't think there's a large differentiation aspect. And I think Barry could bring down bike to $699, bike plus to $999. Row, don't even get me started on row. And treads, whatever treads at. And guide should be $39 right off the bat. And I'm in favor of the Amazons and the eBays and all that stuff. And I know you are not fans of that. But overall, I like what Barry has done the first year. But I have strong concerns. The personality of Barry carrying into year 2 is not going to be as successful if he continues the same path he did in year 1. He needs to mix it up in year 2.
So a couple things. You didn't want to say John's name, but I'll say it. I'll still give him the heart to John Foley. Still gets me excited. And we'll talk about why, because you could use a guy like John in year 2. Because year 2 for Barry, just like year 1, to be honest, in addition to the cost cutting, which I agree with you on, but that's what they hired. They hired a CFO in a Silicon Valley cloak, right? That's kind of what he is, because he was a CFO out there. He was not a strategist out there. So he's done, as you pointed out, the cutting, the shutting down, the ending leases, moving merchandise. Did I grab the hat? I think I grabbed it. Was this from Sierra Trading? No, it wasn't from Sierra Trading. I got it for free at the store because get the same one. They give me this one for free at the store. And I am going to make it to Sierra Trading to see what's going on. But right, that's the easy part. That's the stuff my mom's store used to do, sidewalk sale every year. Get rid of the merchandise that isn't moving. That's the 101 that I think almost any CFO or any good MBA would have said, okay, we have to cut cost. And I think, sadly, I'm not an expert on pricing, but the market seems to agree because the stock performance since Barry's arrived has been not great, right? Negative. It's been cut in almost in half, maybe. So now to year 2. So that's why I've never been a fan, because I thought it was doing the simple things. The number one job is to sell bikes. And so that's why even for the last year, I've had my eye on inventory. And I think it's been proven that Barry and his team, and it's a moving team. So I want to be careful about, we've already had chief marketing officers leaving, and I think a new one just came in, but there's been no great ability to sell bikes. And because I think to the point that you mentioned, I think the company hurt itself and devalued bikes. It's still, I would argue, the best bike on the market. And then we can get into this other topic, which is something that Barry and his team have not gotten a
Yeah.
handle on. What makes the bike valuable is the content that goes with it.
I'm going to
And
correct you right there, though. To your point, I agree. Number one job is not to sell bikes. Number one job at Peloton. Don't look surprised. This is a fact. This is
business
fact.
101,
Number
sales.
one job is to sell subscriptions. Debate me on that.
I will debate you on that.
It is
There's a
not to
lot
sell
of,
hardware.
if you are
100%
selling,
no.
if we look at the best customers in any business, those are the people you survive on. And the best customers at Peloton, as we've discussed, buy multiple pieces of hardware. And right, the best customers, the repeat, the core 5-10%. I'm not sure, they don't disclose really those numbers. We can try and back into them who's got multiple products. And I think you even talked about how many of the row buyers,
Yeah.
guilty. I rode today, Adrian, I think it was 21 through 30 top songs of whatever it was. But right, we're in customers like us for bikes, bikes plus, tread plus. That's a lot of $40 a month when you're paying $3,800 for a piece of hardware or $1,500 for a bike. Or eventually, and we'll get into this one, this is a big prediction for 23. The Tread Plus has got to come back, right? If they're going to
Yeah.
survive, hardware is going to save them.
Yeah.
Hardware is going to save them.
No, well, no, and I think you just proved my point in that in my other video I was talking about Row, which you mentioned. The bad thing about Row, the terrible thing about Row is A, its price, but the equally terrible byproduct of Row is it's not adding subscriptions. Someone did a survey on Facebook the other day, the
Yes.
Facebook group, and 97, 98% of the respondents said Row was an additional Peloton pieces of equipment. It did not contribute to the subscription. LTV, that is where Peloton's bread and butter is long term.
I'm terrible at math, but what is 3,700 divided by 44? How many months of subscription did I just give Peloton up front cash, right?
No.
Today's dollars, not dollars in 4 years,
Yeah.
right? Inflation sucked down dollars. 3,700.
No.
That's great business to me.
And you and I can argue on this all day
Yes.
because
So I'm
I
sure
am
everyone's
firmly
going to tell us
entrenched in where
online
I
that,
am, and you are entrenched in where you
yes,
are. But the
yes.
growth model for Peloton is no longer hardware. They've done a road, they've done a tread, they've done a bike. Hardware is expired except for going out to new countries. The growth path is digital and selling content, both of which are non-hardware.
Barry Light. You're like Barry Light over there.
And Barry has a history in subscriptions. But going back to where you said, do they need something non-Barry? And you were bringing up John Foley's name. And probably like you, I don't really have anything bad about Foley. He did what he did with the information he had at the time. He's a nice guy. He's a sweet guy. Made a lot of wrong decisions. Would I, in his position, have made those wrong decisions? Flip a coin. Maybe I would have. Maybe I wouldn't have. But in year two, no more. You and I care about the layoffs and the manufacturing and the logistics being cut and all this other garbage. But the people who are buying Pelotons are not watching this podcast. They're not watching, they're not looking up, pulling up the SEC filings. They need something tangible from content's not the right word, but someone who's going to visibly move the product, whether it be digital or whether it be hardware or whether it be something else, but something tangible to the viewer who you could look at in a commercial to excite the population to buy into the Peloton ecosystem. And Barry, I'm concerned year two with no hardware except possibly the Tread Plus coming back. I'm concerned where Barry's going to go.
So it's great. So first of all, I think that's one of my big thoughts, predictions, is that Barry does not make it to year three. Now that doesn't mean he's necessarily doesn't mean he's going to be fired. right? Meaning the place could be all kinds of things could happen where there's new leadership and it's just decided, right? I think we've talked about how he came out of retirement for this
Yeah.
one, so it's an easy one to kind of step away again if there's transactions or certain things going on. I think to your point though, one of the reasons Foley was great was because it's a consumer product and you need
Yeah.
the enthusiasm. You need someone like, right, an Apple, even Tim Cook has stepped into that role where he's the front man for this company, right? So even a toxic person, maybe like Elon Musk, who's a little wild for his companies, but you need that with a consumer brand. And I think, they have some leadership changes. They used to be much greater with messaging. And
Oh
this is
yeah.
a bit, and their marketing has been just dreadful the last couple of
Abysmal.
years. And it still goes on because I have the TV running all the time and they're still paying for ads on every single channel. And each week it's a new ad, right? There's the dry January versus sweaty January.
Yeah.
Now it's the don't quit for 7 days. It's like they've prepaid maybe and they feel compelled to just push things out there. So I know there's new leadership coming, but I'll still contend. And this gets back to, maybe the value of the content, the software, the production is that the number one way to sell bikes or subscriptions, whichever you want to call it, is word of mouth. It's
Yes.
true for Peloton.
Yeah.
And it's always been the most important factor for moving memberships. I'll call them that, whether they come in on a bike
Yeah.
or a tread or with a family, right? Just create an
Yeah.
account. And that magic, I think you've referenced it, has maybe disappeared a little bit. And you've seen them struggling on the content front, both in terms of a quantity,
Yeah.
the schedule, and that's an interesting point. I'd like to talk about it.
It's schedule. All right,
This,
but before I hear you talking a lot
this
about.
matters to the investors, and I'll
All
tell
right.
you why, because it's acquisition of customers and it's retention of
Yeah.
customers. And so it's not only the schedule, but it's what they're actually producing and what are they going to produce into 23. And I think we're getting a hint by having more studio hours that maybe they're realizing that they need more scheduling and more traditional courses.
I will
Classes.
say
Jump in.
this, and then I'll ask you for how we're going to resolve this. I will say this: the easiest thing Peloton could have done after, I guess we could probably assume, encouraging John to step down, would be frankly just to find another iteration of John, because at the time, and perhaps even now, but at the time, I think Peloton was full of Johns, full of those types of people. They made the hard decision and they went Barry. Now you haven't been a huge fan of Barry in year one. I don't hear you being a huge fan of Barry in year two, and I to one extent I echo that. So I'm asking you, what is Barry or not Barry, or what should Barry do in year two? Let's just assume there's no hardware on the market. Tread Plus may or may not come out. What do you do? And don't just tell me change marketing. What do you do, David?
Change marketing.
Oh
Oh,
my
so
gosh, there we go.
so when Barry came in, I thought he reminded me of the Terminator, right? He came in kind of like, here's what's going to happen. And I'd like to see that. I want to tighten it up. And I'm about to, maybe this is going to be unpopular. In my head, it's unpopular. He needs to get people back to work in the office, right? Just like a lot of other organizations right now to bring people back in. If you look at the utilization of our instructors on the platform, and this gets into content creation and retention of customers, that is the first thing I would completely overhaul because I think an earlier point you made is what's the path to growth? And I wonder, is Peloton even a growth company? What are they right now? They're just trying to survive right now, right? The cash flow is still a real issue. So and the thing that reminds me of the situation they're in right now, their number one competitors are actually traditional gyms. At this point, the pendulum swung back a little bit right now. People want to be in gyms. They appear to that. The numbers for like a Planet Fitness or Exponential Fitness really look pretty positive. And so that's where I want them to start thinking that way. How do we treat this like we're fighting for those people? And that is higher utilization of your assets, meaning your
Yeah,
instructors.
yeah. Well, I absolutely agree
And
with you. The connected fitness industry, I don't want to say is dead, but it is in quicksand. It's not moving. It's the feet are in cement. There's no momentum in connected fitness. So 100% Peloton does not need to worry about tonal. It does not need to worry about Lululemon. It does not need to worry about Soul Cycle. The only thing Peloton needs to worry about, and you watched the video the other day, does Peloton know where Peloton needs to go? And needs to
And
worry about itself. And to your point, I didn't really have any firm answers on change marketing, but the scheduling.
that's
We're here.
changing the
Let's
product.
talk about it. The scheduling is terrible.
It
What is going on?
it needs so here's my and you and I have talked about it offline, and maybe I've said it in the past, but I really think this is still true. The people, the early adopters of the company, let's say the first 500,000 users, right? 500,000. They had the benefit of full schedules all day. They loved it. They were used to it like a regular health club. You could come in at 6 a.m., 6 p.m. There was going to be something. Then the pandemic hit, and the post-pandemic buyers, there's more of them. They don't even know what they're missing. They're really, the expectations are so low that I think the Peloton team rested on that, allowed their instructors, their talent to build their own brands, leave on a Saturday, go do college football, don't do your most popular class of the week, go do Dancing with the Stars, go write not just one book, 2 books, right? Go, everybody's got a book now, right? We'll see how it's,
everybody has a book. Everybody has a book and a baby.
I didn't say that. So you
no, Barry's doing one thing right. He can't get subscribers with what he's been doing for the past year, so he's breeding them in-house. Brilliant.
That's a slow growth rate. It takes too long. It's too slow. So right. So this gets into right content retention, which then drives membership. That is how the company was built. People saying, Bob, did you take this class? You didn't take it. Well, you got to take it next Tuesday morning with me. Meet me live Tuesday morning. We'll do it. Or you can't do it Tuesday. We'll do it on demand together. And by limiting the content, by limiting the exposure to the instructors, they've hurt themselves. Now, the positive is they've opened up studios. They're doing events. So people are getting that feeling back. And this is where, to your point of growth, I think this is where you and I differ, but I want to squeeze more money out of current customers.
100%. Monetize.
So if I can get them coming to the studio, paying for classes, I've always said this. I'm pretty sure I said it in my book. Why they don't have travel packages, I don't understand. Now, the margins are not as high as subscriptions, but the gross revenue of someone having to book a ticket, and you can get a third party to do that. That is not an in-house thing. So to me, there are ways to monetize, to grow, right? To really grow with your existing customer base. Do what you've always done. Open the strip, give them, we're all here for the content, the convenience and the quality. And so I still think that's the biggest challenge. And it's a struggle. It's kind of this world we live in where talent has power, and we're watching it play out in Peloton, where the balance to talent went really one way.
It's just the talent portion. The scheduling can be revamped, and Barry should do that. I don't know if Jen Cotter who's doing scheduling nowadays, but they just need to sit in a room and just throw out whatever they've been doing and redo it. Will that bring in a whole lot of more new people? Over time, because to your point, if they do some Olympic Pyongyang rides and stuff like that would just, it freaking excites you. You want to get on the bike and see that stuff. But the talent is hard to scale. You can only do so many showroom visits. You can only pump so many people in a studio. You can only build so many studios. There's a scaling problem with talent, just like there is with the interaction, the high five stuff. They need more interactions. High five is nice, but that's it. If I see someone on the board, I can't text them. I can't leave them a voicemail. I can't do anything. High five. That's it. Give me some. That would be excitement.
So I think what's happened, right? I mean, this, in terms of answering that, you're 100% right. The engagement's great. I mean, I know they're increasing the high fives and the milestones, because I think what they've realized, and we've known this for years, part of the beauty of Peloton, the reason the community grew, was the members took care of each other. It's not all on the instructor, right? 10 high fives may make you happier than a shout out, maybe, especially a bad shout. There's nothing worse than a bad shout. It's like 250 Chicago born. You're like, oh, great. That was freaking brutal. They just kind of read a list like it's study hall attendance or something, right? So maybe it is getting a high five from people or them. But you're right, like pushing more of that, the interaction, 100% agree. And that's another one where I've seen them take baby steps and they could really improve. So for example, a couple of years ago at Homecoming, They did a 5K race. They could do 10 5K races a summer around the country
Yeah.
and have 30,000 people in every city out with Peloton gear with their friends,
Yeah.
being healthy. You maybe have one instructor, two instructors. I mean, you could really scale that beyond the showrooms. Now, I would nominate myself for the board of this company because clearly I have better ideas than any of the people sitting around there at this point who clearly don't have any clue on how to increase revenue at low cost. So to me, with members like you who and me and the people who don't even care about this size, as you point out, but just want to show up,
Yeah.
they have such a good asset because back to my point of sales, your customer is your most important thing. And that they still have. And I still, we've talked about the reason they have this is because the alternatives still are not competitive.
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
Tonals, they can't compete quite yet. So Peloton still has a couple years to right this ship. But at some point, right, the time runs out.
Time runs
And
out.
I hope they can figure that out. What else? Do you see anything else big for 23? I think hardware comes back, leadership change at some point later in the year.
I I, I have very. I usually have a lot of forecasts going out 6, 12 months with Peloton. And I mentioned in a video I did the other day, I'm not sure what's happening in 2023.
Yeah.
I do believe Tread Plus will make a return. It may be December 31st, 2023, but I think it will make a return. I don't see any other hardware. I see a lot more cost cutting and jiggling numbers and stuff like that, but to where I was earlier, I just don't see a whole lot there. But let's kind of wrap it up here and with that summary, and that is for Barry, year 2, we need to see something different from him than year 1. You agree?
Absolutely. I think he's got to get back to what John Foley used to call a member first company. Even if I grant him that he had to focus on saving the company first last year, he's now got to swing back to every morning when he wakes up. What does my member want today?
Yeah.
What do they want?
It is
And focus
all
on
about
that.
the members. It is, to me, all about the subscriptions, and we can debate on that. And it is all about excitement and word of mouth, and that drives the sales. What is not
Yeah.
driving the sales is what they did over the last year.
One detail on your focus on subscriptions, which I agree with. There's nothing better than recurring revenue. But how do you propose to get those people? I think you're saying give away the bikes, basically.
I'm saying give away the
Cost.
bikes.
Cost.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So if that's my concern, and we have this, for all of human history, when people don't pay for something, they don't value it.
Yeah.
And the worst example that we can point to, the most saddening example, it's one of the reasons I love this freaking company, is that you get your human body for free, and people treat it like absolute crap.
You and I are on the same page there. 100%.
So if you give them a bike for free, I don't know. It's like a rental car.
I'm paying $44 a month now. That's not
No,
chicken,
and that's
not
true,
chicken feed.
but it's cancelable at any time, as
Yeah.
we're seeing it. Fitness as service
All right.
didn't really work. Yeah, I call that one. So I agree with you, right? And it's got to be killer content, and then that $6.99 is worth $1,000 because that gets me in to Alex and to Robin and to all these great things. So I hope they can fix it in 23. I hope the product gets better. I hope they can raise the value, the profile of the company by, like you said, having exciting events, exciting member-focused activities, and not just always about celebrating the instructors and how great they are. And I do love them, but sometimes enough's enough.
All right, David. That was I always like talking to you because we always agree on some things and we always disagree on other things. But what we can both agree with on behalf of you and I is Barry does need to send us 2 plane tickets to come to the board and inform them on some things that they could probably change.
And I could take a train. It's even cheaper.
All right, David. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
See you on the leaderboard.
Bye-bye.